YouTube. Today on The Naughty Librarian, I am doing my April wrap-up. So, I read 10 books this month, and I pretty much stuck to my TBR list. I read a good amount of books from it, and then I just went off the rails and started reading other books that weren't on my list at all, but like, they were good books, so what are you gonna do? For this month, I'm just gonna go in random order. I'm just gonna pick randomly out of the stack and just go from there. It's gonna be crazy. To start off, I have Making a Play by Victoria Denault. This is a kind of sports-themed romance. It is set in the hockey world, as evidenced by the shirtless guy with a hockey stick on the cover. It is a like friends to lovers romance, and yeah, it has some good smutty bits, it had some laughs, it had some cries. It was just, it wasn't like extraordinary, but it was okay. Like, it was good, it was decent, I didn't hate it. So I think I would read another book in the series, because maybe this was just the one that I don't like, but I might like different books. So I'm like kind of in that boat right now. Next up, I have City of Fallen Angels by Cassandra Clare. I felt that Clary was slightly less stupid, which was nice. She actually was like attempting to train for a little bit rather than being like, I'm a shadow hunter, blah, I'm gonna fight everybody. And it's like, bitch, you've never even taken like a yoga class. Like, you can't do anything with fighting. But I digress. Clary is actually trying to learn something for once, so I'm like, okay, I'll put up with you. My biggest thing that was like irritating me in particular about it was that everybody just was keeping secrets all the time. And let's be real, in any fantasy book, secrets don't help anyone ever. They just lead to catastrophes. Like, I don't know why people just don't say some shit when they know some shit. It's like, Also, I have like the biggest case of OTP blue balls like I've ever had in my life. We went through all of the drama of the first 3 books of this series with Jace and Clary thinking they're brother and sister, and you're like, okay, that's over, finally, we can move on with our lives and they can be together, and then like they're still not together. Like, why are you like this, Cassandra Clare? Just gosh. I do like the world building, and I like the overall arc of the story, so I'm gonna read another book of the series. I know I am. I'm gonna finish it. I'm gonna finish the series. It's just, I'm never not gonna be annoyed. Third, I read TheDarkest Minds by Alexandra Bracken. It is an older book. I think it came out in 2012. And I think if I would have read this book in 2012, I might have really liked it. The problem is I'm reading it in 2018, where I've read a lot of other books that were similar to this that did it better. So I was actually kind of disappointed by TheDarkest Minds. Like, I was just not into it. Also, there is some very disturbing content in this book that's handled very poorly, and it bothered me a lot. So, sorry, trigger warning for sexual assault, because there's sexual assault in this book, and they handle it very badly. Without spoilers, this character can control minds, and he like paralyzes her, and she passes out, and she wakes up, and she knows like he touched her because he was trying to kiss her before she passed out. So she doesn't know what this guy has been doing to her body while she's been blacked out. So basically it's a date rape, and the way it's handled, it was just basically made it seem like, oh, it was a threatening circumstance. It's like, no, it's a date rape. Like, just because like maybe sex didn't occur doesn't mean it wasn't a sexual assault. So all of that was handled so poorly. So I was just like out. I was like, nope, I don't need to read the rest of the series. I don't like it. Next up, I have The Female of the Species by Mindy McGinnis. Ooh, this was dark. Like, this was a dark book. Essentially, it's about a teenage girl who like murders molesters and rapists and pedophiles. Like, that's like a very base understanding of the book, but honestly, it's a really in-depth examination of what rape culture is, and it's handled very well in this story. So many things are pointed out that are obviously part of rape culture that people don't realize are part of rape culture. So I appreciated it so much for just like being frank about a lot of things. There was one really good quote in here that I felt summed up its like thought process about rape culture, and since it was a library book, I did not tab it, but I wrote it down. It's a reflex, something that's been ingrained in me. Do no harm, be nice. You catch more flies with honey than vinegar. But what if I don't want to catch flies? What if I'd rather see them swatted? Oh, that's such a good quote. I love that line so much. And I didn't give this 5 stars, I gave it 4 stars. Mainly because the ending was so dark. Like, don't get me wrong, it's about a girl who murders rapists. Like, I wasn't expecting unicorns and rainbows at the end, but like, this ending was way darker than I ever thought it was going to be. And I was like, oh, I went through all of this book for it to end like that. So the ending I was not the biggest fan of, but overall I thought the book was very insightful and I loved it. It was very dark and very, yeah, it's dark. There's nothing I can say that, oh, it had comedic moments. No, it's dark, but very good. I also read Truth Wish by Susan Dennard this month. This was a buddy read, and I read it with Lauren at the Novel Lush, Bethany at Beautifully Bookish Bethany, Leanna from Leanna's Library, and Mara from Books Like Woe. And I'll leave like links to their channels down below because these are all awesome ladies and we all read Truth Wish together and it was an awesome fun time. Well, I would say probably the first 100 pages of this 400-page book are very dry and hard to get through, frankly, because it's just so much info dumping, but that's kind of common in a high fantasy novel because you have to learn this whole new world and all of their world processes and like who knows who and their magic, and it's a lot of info dumping and it's a lot you have to like figure out and learn, so it's very dry for a long time. But after like the first quarter of the book is over, the adventure starts and it actually ends up being really good. I really enjoyed this after all. I liked that a lot of the focus of this story was on female friendship rather than necessarily romantic interests. I know, right? That's never something I say, but in this case, like, it worked. I'm not entirely sure how I feel about Safia, our main character, just because I felt like she was very impulsive and very self-centered, and she wasn't necessarily a likable character. I hope that changes going forward. Even the ending of the book where it seems like she's doing something selfless, I'm like, it's still pretty selfish, like, like, let's be real. Overall, I did really love this series, and I'm totally down to keep reading it. I believe the next book is called Wind Witch, and I'm going to try my best to read it in May. So, hey ladies, let's do another buddy read for Wind Witch, because everyone seemed to like this a lot. I also read Defy the Worlds by Claudia Gray. This is a sequel to Defy the Stars, which I absolutely loved. It was one of my favorite books of 2017. And I liked it. I didn't love it as much as Defy the Stars, I'll say that, mainly because this took a turn for the dark. Oh my gosh. Similar to Female of the Species, I wasn't expecting unicorns and rainbows in this because it is an overall dark series, but this one, it was beyond dark. It was pitch black. Like, this is so dark. Also, if I'm being fully honest with myself, it was really predictable. Like, I was able to pretty much predict everything that happened in the story. However, I still really love this book. It still has everything that I love the most about Defy the Stars, which was the characters are very nuanced and complex. I really, really love Noemi and Abel. Abel is an android who has gained full human consciousness, so now he is like his own person and he has thoughts and emotions and he can cry and like he's becoming a person basically. And Noemi is like a soldier and it's kind of like a love story, and I love all of that. For that reason, I still love this series and I do want to continue on, but I'm just saying if I was going to compare, Defy the Stars is probably better than Defy the Worlds. I finally read I Believe in a Thing Called Love by Maureen Gu. And oh my gosh, it's adorable. I loved it so much. It's so funny. It is one of the funniest romantic comedies I've read like in a long time. Like, I was laughing till I cried. It was so funny. It's about a girl named Desi who is very type A, and she's trying to figure out how to have a relationship. And so in doing so, she figures out there needs to be a system that she can study and perfect so she can be good at it. And so she bases her approach to romance off of K-dramas, and she writes out this long list of steps until you get to like long-lasting love, and it's like basically a step-by-step manual on how to obtain a relationship. It's also kind of making fun of the structure of romantic comedies a bit because it actually just wrote it out. And I loved it because it's like, I love books that don't take themselves so seriously. and it's adorable and hilarious, and I cannot recommend it enough to like everyone. I also read The Wedding Date by Jasmine Guillory. This is also a contemporary romance, but this is a romance for grown-ass adults, which I was like needing because I've been reading so much YA lately, and that's not a bad thing. It's just that I am also a grown-ass adult, so sometimes I want to read books about other grown-ass adults. This also delves into the intricacies of an interracial relationship because Alexa is black and Drew is white. So those issues are brought up, and if I had to give criticism, I would say they could have been delved into further. It's just like an interesting place to go, and you could also put comedy into that. So I would have preferred that to be kind of focused on more than the conflict that was focused on, which was kind of just the fact that their relationship is built like on an unsteady foundation. Alexa has a lot of insecurities, and I don't think Drew does anything really to help assuage these insecurities. I'm just gonna say that as a woman, being constantly introduced as someone's friend after you already have first-hand knowledge of their penis is just soul-crushing. So I've been there, I get it. But like, that would seem to be the big focus of the book. I think maybe the interracial relationship aspects could have been like more prevalent than just the "you're my friend" kind of problems, but that's the only criticism I can really give. Overall, it's really adorable. It's not too smutty, I would say, because I've read far smuttier things. This is like light smut. I would recommend it to fans of The Hating Game because The Hating Game felt similar in adorableness and smut content, so I recommend this book if you're a fan of that book. I finally got around to reading The Bells by Danielle Clayton this month. So The Bells, on first glance, appears to be about this world where everyone's like gray colored, but there's these certain women who are born like with color in their skin and everything, and then like they can control beauty. So basically they can like have some type of magic ability where they can reshape your body down to your very bones. And honestly, the scenes when they're like doing these beauty treatments, they're kind of horrific because it's like people like reshaping bone while you're conscious. So like it's a little like body horror at times. If you read between the lines though, it actually is a really nuanced story about slavery. These women, the Bells, while they are respected for having this ability to help people become beautiful, they're never really treated as if they are people. They're treated like they're commodities, or they're even fetishized for how different they are. But they're not treated as if they're human beings. They're treated only as a person you can use to do things for you. Much like slaves. So really, it's quite nuanced and really deep when you read between the lines, and I enjoyed that aspect of it quite a bit. Personally, just my taste, nothing against the book, I just don't really like books that take place in like opulent worlds like this. It's just like a me thing, because when I'm reading books like this, I'm just like, oh gosh, if you describe another fancy cake, like I'm gonna scream. Overall, it's very well written, and I would recommend it. It's just maybe not like my taste. The last book I read this month was Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi, and I'm so excited that I read it. It's super hypey right now. It's all over BookTube. It's all over everywhere how good it is, and like honestly, it's fantastic. Like I recommend it quite a bit. It's really good. Similar to The Bells, like on first glance, this is a fantasy story about these magically inclined people, magi, and basically the people without magic are the ruling people, and they took magic away, and magic is outlawed, and it's about them wanting to bring magic back. So that's the surface story. Again, if you read between the lines, this is actually a metaphor for institutional racism. In Orisha, the setting for this story, if you are a magi, you look like a magi. You have a physical characteristic, which is this white hair. So when people see you, they immediately profile you as someone who is bad and is going to be up to no good. So you're constantly harassed. This whole society has been built in a way to keep them oppressed. They are told constantly that they're ugly and that they're dirty and they're not as good as people who aren't magi, and that also leads to like a lot of like internalized hatred of your, you know, because if you're told all the time that you're ugly and dirty, you're gonna start believing it even if it's not true. I mean, the parallels between this fictional setting of this book and our own world are quite apparent, and honestly, it's amazing. Like, it's so well written, and I love it to bits. All of the between the lines content of the institutional racism is fantastic. It's very nuanced and thoughtful and soulful. And then all of the magic and adventure and the characters, and all of that's great too. If you're just looking at it from a fantasy standpoint, also great. I cannot sing this book's praises enough. I highly recommend checking it out. Woo! I had a pretty good reading month. 10 books is like a pretty good amount of books. Let me know in the comments down below if you've read any of these books, which ones are your favorites or least favorites. Also, let me know if there's something I should definitely be reading in May. I want to know what you think. If you like this video, make sure you give it a like. And if you want to see more videos, make sure you subscribe. And I'll see you guys soon.